The episode, 100 Mile Walk, stands as one of the most emotionally stirring early chapters in the Little House on the Prairie saga. While the Ingalls family had only just begun to settle into their new life on the banks of Plum Creek, this story sharply reminds us how fragile a pioneer's dreams could be, and how courage is often born in the ashes of despair. The episode opens with Charles Ingalls gathering his family around the table, a sparkle of excitement in his eyes. Spread out before him are the figures of their future, 100 acres of golden wheat standing tall and ripe, promising 35 bushels an acre at 75 cents a bushel. As he and Caroline tally the numbers with almost childlike glee, the total bursts out to $2,625. For the Ingalls family, it is a fortune. Caroline imagines new dresses for her girls, warm curtains on the windows, new dishes, and even a little rocking horse for baby Carrie. Charles laughs, insisting the very first coin must go for a new pair of boots. Their laughter and hopes fill the small house with warmth, like sunlight on the wooden walls. And then, Charles steps outside and unveils his secret surprise: 2 sturdy, gleaming horses bought in trade from Mr. Hanson. The girls squeal with delight as they stroke the animals' velvety noses, and Charles promises that now he can drive his wife to church in style. In this moment, everything seems perfect. A new life, a good harvest, and a hopeful future are all within reach. But on the prairie, hope can vanish in a single heartbeat. As evening falls, a gentle rain begins to patter outside. Charles assures Caroline it will do the wheat good, long as it's standing. Yet, the calm turns suddenly violent. Hail begins to slam down in white torrents, clattering like gunfire on the roof. Charles dashes out into the icy chaos, but by morning, the truth stands plain. The wheat is flattened, shredded to nothing. The season's work and dreams lie destroyed in the mud. Around town, despair echoes from every corner. In Mr. Hanson's mill, men stand silent and broken. No one has money, no one can lend, and everyone has lost. One man pleads for a loan to feed his sick wife and children, but Hanson can only shake his head. "The hail don't play favorites," he says grimly. "It falls on every man alike." Even Charles, always steady as the earth, is hollow-eyed. He quietly returns the horses to Hanson, his treasured dream given up without protest. He says, "A man can't keep what he can't pay for," simply. And then, with resolve forged from desperation, he makes his choice. He will leave home and walk as far as he must, perhaps 100 miles, to find work and bring cash back for winter. Early the next morning, Charles shoulders his bundle and kisses his wife goodbye, his voice breaking as he promises to write. Little Laura calls after him with tears glimmering in her eyes. He forces a smile, waves, and vanishes down the dusty road, the vast, empty prairie swallowing his figure. Soon, Charles falls in with a rough but kind-hearted drifter named Jack Peters, also seeking work. They share campfire stew one night with the towering, soft-spoken farmer named Jacob, who trades Charles a pair of handmade boots. The camaraderie is brief but real. 3 strangers bound by hunger and the will to survive. Jacob suggests they try for jobs at a distant stone quarry, though the work is dangerous. It involves double jacking, one man holding a steel drill while the other swings a heavy sledgehammer, striking again and again to bore holes for dynamite. One slip can shatter bones. But there are no safer jobs to be had. So, with silent determination, Charles and Jack agree. At the quarry, they prove themselves in a fierce trial before the gruff boss, Tom Cassidy. Swinging with all their strength and flawless rhythm, Charles and Jacob drive the drill deep into the stone. Cassidy nods curtly. They're hired. Days blur together under the blazing sun. Sweat runs in rivers. Hammers clang like church bells against the cliffs. Dynamite blasts echo through the canyon walls. Charles's hands split and swell, yet he never falters. Jacob misses his wife Elna and hopes to return before their first child is born. Charles admits how he imagines Caroline and the girls washing dishes and tucking into bed each night, the memory keeping him going. Meanwhile, back on the prairie, the women of Walnut Grove gather in a field of battered, flattened wheat. Caroline rallies them with the story of Ruth gleaning grain by hand. If the men are gone, they must do the impossible themselves. Bend their backs to gather what can be saved. Skeptical at first, the women begin crawling through the fields, binding tiny bundles stalk by stalk under the relentless sun, their hands raw and aching. Hunger will not win. On Tuesday, meal day, Caroline receives a letter from Charles. Her hands tremble as she opens it. His words are simple, yet rich with longing. 100 miles is not a long distance, except when it lies between you and the ones you love. He assures them he is safe, that he visits them each day in his thoughts, and that he loves them all more than words can say. Caroline's eyes glisten. Then she squares her shoulders. There is still wheat to glean. Weeks pass. Charles and Jacob grow stronger, faster, more precise with their hammer and drill dance. When the quarry announces a drilling contest, they seize the chance. The prize is $50, enough to make their suffering worthwhile. Before a crowd shouting workers, they drive the steel faster and deeper than the reigning champions. At last, the boss bellows, "Hold it! You win!" Breathless and grinning through their sweat, Charles and Jacob clasp hands in triumph. They are paid their wages and their prize, but the victory is bittersweet. Jack Peters has been killed in an accident. Quietly, the boss hands Charles Jack's wages and asks him to deliver them to his widow. Charles accepts, face etched with sorrow. On this hard frontier, joy and grief forever walk hand in hand. As the sun sets, Charles trudges the final miles homeward. Jacob, now a father of a newborn baby boy, parts ways and waves. Charles presses onward alone, clutching the money that will save his family. Back at the farm, Laura and Mary are out in the yard when they spot a lone figure cresting the hill. Dusty, weary, but unbroken, Pa is home. The girls scream of joy and run to him, and he sweeps them up in his arms, laughing through tears. Caroline rushes from the doorway and folds herself into his embrace. Their losses have been great, but their love has endured. They have survived the storm. 100-mile walk is a breathtaking ode to perseverance. It portrays not just physical endurance, but the invisible strength of love that keeps Charles driving his hammer into the rock, keeps Caroline binding shattered wheat stalks with bleeding hands. It keeps the Ingalls family from giving up when all seems lost. The episode reveals that true courage is quiet and stubborn. A man walking 100 miles through loneliness for the people he loves. Visually and emotionally, the episode balances the grit of the quarry scenes, filled with sparks and sweat and pounding hammers, against the aching tenderness of Caroline reading Charles's letter aloud in the soft glow of lamplight. It is a portrait of sacrifice that is deeply human and profoundly moving. By the time Charles walks back into the yard and Laura cries, "Pa's back!" the moment feels like sunlight breaking through a storm. Not because the Ingalls have grown richer, but because their spirit has remained unbroken. In 100 Mile Walk, Little House on the Prairie captures the essence of pioneer life, hardship, heartbreak, and above all, hope.